Good morning, healing friends. This is Steve, and with my guide, Arlen. And I've found it really useful all along since I've had these instructions from Arlen. Much of the work as I do it has had to do as a result of his teaching, primarily in night school, so in the dream world. I go in the dream world and I'm instructed how to do certain things, and much of the instruction comes through Arlen. Now, he's been teaching me over the last 6 or 8 weeks through me. So I remain inside myself, and then Arlen comes in and Arlen gives instruction. To all of us who watched this video, I was watching one of the videos that I think I entitled World Class Healing Class with Arlen, something like that. And it had over 300 views, which meant when I went to watch it, I had to sit through commercials while I watched the class, which was such a useful class, and I kept having to, I didn't want to look at the videos, so I kept wanting to block, the commercials out. And yet the instruction was so good. So today is going to be both a healing field setup and a class. And Arlen's going to take us through the process of setting up the healing field and preparing ourselves for the healing experience. So without more words, I bring you my friend and guide, Arlen. Welcome. And that was a nice introduction. And I'm glad that Stephen is going back and watching these videos we've made over the past 2 months together. It's difficult. It can be difficult. It doesn't have to be difficult, but it can be difficult to learn things in the dream world, which is you're learning them primarily you're learning them primarily on an intellectual level, although you're having some experiences in the dream world. But embodying what you learn requires that you take the information from the dream world and bring it into consciousness when you come out of the dream world and you're in the awake world. Then you bring this information in and you actually process it and bring the data in and embody the information. Then you own it. Once you embody the experience, you own the experience, and then you know what it is that maybe Steve or I am talking about. You know what we're talking about when you've had the experience. You think you know what we're talking about when you understand it intellectually without the experience. And you go, oh yeah, I know about that. You know about that here. But there's a whole other realm to know about that. And that's inside a body that, if you're watching this, most of you have bodies that you're in. And you're wanting to learn how to do these things in bodies that you're in so that you can help the body that you're in remain living so you can remain experiencing this realm of the earth, which you don't have to be in a body to experience this realm of the earth. But if you have been in a body and you're no longer in a body, you can't experience it in the same way, but you can imagine what it's like because you've had that experience if you've been in a body. So, Steve gave the introduction. I'm Arlen. I am a close friend and, in this lifetime, guide to Stephen. In other lifetimes, Stephen has been a guide to me, because I explained before, there are two things, primary things that make up, there are multiple things that make up one's consciousness in a body here on earth. One of them is the experiences, whether resolved or unresolved, of the soul that are brought in to the body in the incarnation process. So, as a soul, one comes in, and one comes in primarily to do one's soul work. And the soul carries with it what's referred to as an etheric body. So it's an energy body that partially has to do with why the soul Steve looks like this body Steve, because the etheric body is an energetic blueprint for this physical body that appears to you on the screen as Steve. There is also ancestral energetics that come in through the genetic structure, that come in with the genetic material of the two parents that form the body in which the being with their soul and their etheric body comes into, and those merge. So there's a merging of the being and the body, and that produces what we refer to as the human being. So, you may have been told by your parents that you were an easy child. Probably if you're here watching this video, this was not necessarily said to you. What you incarnate to do has to do with your interests that have been explored before, or you wish to explore and you wish to explore again, or there may be some new things that you're interested in exploring that will benefit you and therefore the world through your exploration. And it can get a little complicated, but I think if we keep it simple, it'll be more comprehensible. So in some ways, many of us, before we come in, we have guides and helpers and beings that we work with that we determine what would be useful for us to do once we get here. And in some ways, many of us make these agreements as a contract, and that's referred to as a soul contract. And our soul, our being, soul being, may say, I will do this in this lifetime. And that's a soul contract. Stephen made one of these contracts before he came in. I agreed to assist him to make sure that he fulfilled his contract. And he's done this for me as well, because one can become very forgetful once they incarnate. And once they incarnate, they've got a whole world they need to once again learn to live in. And it's a whole different world than the one they lived in previously. Maybe they've spent a number of lifetimes in a female body, and now they're coming in to a male body, and it's just energetically different. And the things that one learned, one carries in. So if one comes into a body and hasn't had a male lifetime experience in a bit, they usually are pretty equally balanced. They're pretty balanced. But one may have challenges shifting their consciousness into this other energetic. And there are, so like, give you a lot to think about. Maybe more than a class on how to do things, how to do. This is more a class on that will help you to understand maybe some of the difficulties you've had living this life. If you've had difficulties. Not to say that you have had difficulties, but I can say quite clearly and succinctly, Stephen has had many difficulties. He gave himself a very challenging life. And he did so with intention, because he did so knowing that he has had a tendency in the past, in other lifetimes, to lose focus. And so shut himself off, because the majority of people, beings in bodies, the majority of human beings have guidance systems. I can't say the majority of them are consciously aware of their guidance systems. And sometimes it takes quite a bit of work for the guides to guide. It has been the case in this lifetime, in this experience with Stephen. has been very challenging for both he and I. The challenge has been there. And I was able to get him to become more conscious of me in time, for him to complete a portion of his soul contract. And I ended up only having 14 months to do some extensive training and awakening. And I had 14 months to do that work with him. He was very diligent. I stayed on him, and he was very diligent and got it done and did the thing he had agreed to do. So he gets a lot of credit, because when he's interested, then he can really pour himself into something. But if he loses interest and gets interested in something else, then the thing that he was heading towards can just disappear on some levels. Because once we lose focus, off we go. So he needed a little help again a couple months ago to take a look at what he had agreed to do and whether or not he was doing that. And it's useful for this to be about Stephen today, because this may help many of you who have done the same thing, where you came in, let's say, that you perceive yourself as a being of light. And it's not, there is the polarity, the duality process where the light and the dark, the light being good, the dark being bad. That's just one story. That's just one belief or perception of reality, that one is doing this light, good, dark, bad thinking. There are ways in which we can act in the world, in which we can behave, that are aligned with the larger scheme of things, the larger consciousness, a design that's emerging, and we can participate in that design that's emerging by really opening ourselves up to that design and really letting ourselves be led by different aspects of ourself, or by guides that we have agreed to work with. We can really open ourselves up to that, to a point where we may actually hear words spoken to us from what appears to be outside. And it could be seen as telepathic. The words that you hear may, be consistent, like a particular voice or tonal quality that you might hear. There can be reactions that you have. And the reactions that you have aren't necessarily proving the rightness or the wrongness of something. So if something is suggested to you, and you get a bad feeling about it, that bad feeling you get about what's suggested to you may have to do with the discomfort stored in your body that the suggestion is going to help you to address that discomfort. But you go, no, I get a bad feeling about this. I'm not going to do it. There is a usefulness of paying attention to having a bad feeling about something and to explore it. And to learn how to experience the bad feeling about something and not run away from it. So if we just shut down what we're doing because we have a bad feeling, which can be a habitual pattern for some people, I have a bad feeling, I shut down, or I withdraw. I pull back away from that energetic that I feel connected with and supported by. I pull back and away from it. Or we have something happen and we blame our guidance system for what happened. Okay, we have a number of things moving. So a healing field is open. A healing field within the world healing field that's always open, has been open since the end of January of 2020 when we had Stephen open the field. It's remained in place. It's a healing field to help with the energy disturbance that were beginning to arise from the triggering mechanism of the external world on the internal world, and the triggering and all the things that were going to begin to come up and have come up to be cleared over the past 6 years. Okay. So a healing field is open. We're surrounded by a field of protection while we do our work. We ask the higher self to take us through the portal of time to the event that would be of the highest good to release and integrate at this time. We invite all souls affected by this event to return to this event, release and integrate the energy of the event for themselves. We ask that they be placed in a field of protection while they do the work. Upon our arrival at the event, we ask the higher self to assist us to release and integrate all energies of the event gently and easily, fully and completely, on all levels and through all space and time. We have been working with these energetics from the beginning. I spoke about the healing field just to bring more awareness to it, because the energies that were beginning to come off of that event were beginning to have an impact on all the bodies that had been there. The body wasn't there, but the soul was there in a body. And that soul and that etheric body carried the impact of the event with them into the body. So the body has the impact of the event, even if it was another lifetime, or even if it was an ancestor, or even if it was an ancestor in a different lifetime. Those factors come in to give us this experience we're having of being a human being in this lifetime. So if you were beginning to feel, as I was beginning to become aware of stronger feelings, physical feelings, mental thoughts, emotional experiences, and some spiritual energetic movement taking place, all of which were taking place as a result of this event that we were clearing from the beginning of this monologue. But it was beginning to intensify, and then I was aware that it would be useful for you to be aware that you're in a healing field. You've been given a lot of information, and the reason you've been given a lot of information is because it's becoming more and more useful to have this information and to have it consciously. So, Stephen asked if I would make this video today because Stephen had gone back to look for a video that I had made early on with him to send to a friend so that the video could help that friend move through a particular experience. But in the course of going back and looking for the video and finding the video, just the one he was looking for, and there are over 400 of these videos, but just finding the one he didn't even know until he started listening to it, and then he had to listen halfway through it to understand that was the video where this information that he wanted to share came from. But that information came back into his consciousness and awakened him on another level, which caused him to look back at another video which did the same thing, which he ended up watching twice. The value of repeating these videos is that you're getting the information the first time with a particular mindset, a particular perspective, and you're bringing a lot of the information through these mental calibrators. Like, does this sound right? Does this sound right? And then there's, does this feel right? Does this feel accurate? And then there's like, is this doing something? Am I noticing something from this? So when Stephen went back and he ended up watching these two videos, one was from 2 months ago or so when I came in and began speaking through him for the first time since 1996, 97, that period of time, that 14 months. And so here I was speaking again through him. And at that time that I did some speaking through him to a hypnotherapist, it was important that he be out of the body and sitting away from the body while I had this conversation with the hypnotherapist. So in that first video that I made, he was sitting over on a chair listening to me as I made the video when we switched places. Now he and I can exist in the same space, in this body. We can exist together in this body without it setting him off as much. And then when it does set him off, I can help him work with that. And the videos are meant to help others through him to realize things can be easier than they have appeared to be in the past. So this will be another video that will give a lot of information that you may not completely comprehend or embody in your first viewing of it, but you may go back to it and do it again, and you may go back to it and do it again. And Stephen is working on finding out how to make a playlist so that he can have these videos that were made for him by me kind of in order so they're easier to find, because the other videos people find useful. The videos that he's made related to the Mayan calendar, related to tarot cards, and giving people images and thoughts through the tarot cards. But these healing classes, he's beginning to realize that he's going to get the most from them, because this way he can be taught more things that he can do to make this process easier for himself, and through doing that can pass that on to more people. So that's the idea of these videos. It's kind of a new direction, because he's beginning to realize how much benefit it has for him. Therefore, he's beginning to see how much benefit it's going to have for others. And he's beginning to realize that no matter how much he wants to think about this next 3 months of the closure of the 7 years of spiritual cleansing, no matter how much he may want to think about this getting easier, and it may get easier, but it's not going to necessarily get easier because he imagines it getting easier. It's going to get easier because he learns how to process all the data in an easier way. So it may be true that he's going to have a much easier experience from here through March of 2025, but he's going to have an easier experience because he does the work to make it easier, not because the energies are necessarily going to be less intense. Oftentimes, when something's coming up and is clearing, and you've had the experience, maybe with a physical illness, where it all comes up to the surface and boom, comes out. It may be for some more akin to that, especially for those who have been holding on. And I've used this illustration, just holding on, and they could be letting go. And these videos are going to be about me helping Stephen let go easier and easier and easier, so he can demonstrate through embodiment this being easier for him, rather than not use my help and struggle through this process and have everybody watching this struggle and maybe imitating this struggle. And it will be a struggle for anyone who is attempting to stop the process of this ascension. And you say, I'm not trying to stop it, I'm going with it. Yeah, it depends on your experience. if you're finding yourself more and more uncomfortable, you are on some level attempting to stop the process. And if you're finding yourself more and more comfortable, you are opening up, opening up, opening up, opening up to the process. You're participating, you're embodying all these new energies that come in, you're letting go of whatever it is that's coming up for you. And you will have an easier experience by doing that. And Stephen's realizing that he'll have an easier experience by doing that, an even easier experience by paying attention to what I suggest to him. So you'll be watching the things that I'm suggesting to Stephen to do, and you can listen to those, and you can see if those ring true for you, if you think like, okay, or I'm just going to experience this. He's saying this is easy. Did that feel easy? And if it feels easy, you can go, oh, that was easier than how I've done it before, so maybe I'll do it this way now. Or you'll take little examples of things, you know. Little things will begin to make sense to you. And more people. Stephen was complaining earlier to his partner about how bothersome it was for him because the video he wanted to watch that he and I had made had over 300 views, which put it into the category of these get commercials. So every few minutes a commercial would come on. He'd have to go through the process of, like, you know, shielding his eyes from any subliminal programming that might be going on, and turn the sound off really quickly. And then when it would come back to he and I putting the sound back on again, and he had to do that 4 or 5 times because the video had quite a few views. And I guess there's some algorithm that when you reach a certain number of views, then these commercials kick on, because the people who make the commercials want more people to see them, because I don't know if they're paying for, I imagine they're paying YouTube to have their commercials come on, and there's an algorithm in terms of what might be, this person might be interested in special outdoor wear or whatever, tools. And so that's what's fed. In the process of having these streams of monetary energy flowing. But anyway, Stephen got over it, but it was somewhat disruptive to him to have to watch all these commercials on his own video. So maybe he'll begin saving these videos on another, he has some saved on another device, but for the most part he just makes them, they go on YouTube, and then he eliminates them so they're not taking up space. The price of success. Okay, we better stop now, otherwise it'll take days for this to upload. And so for Stephen and Arlen, be well. Less effort in making changes, more allowing changes, and the energies, the rising energies, will assist you to make the changes. And it's really a matter of letting go. Change is a matter of letting go of the world that you are holding on to and creating the space for the world that you're wishing to move into. Okay. Nowmustgo.